Hello everyone. Welcome to my teaching learning session. We start with a new unit today which is BPCG, which will talk about youth, gender and identity. A topic which is at the moment requires a lot of clarity and a lot of understanding in youth amongst and even in adults today. There is a huge difference that we will understand in this unit today of unit 1 of BPGC CG 172 in Unit 1. So, I'm welcoming you today for the session. My name is Sonal Singh Pawar. Let's continue. The topic today in the Unit 1, which talks about the concept and identity, will speak about concept of youth, the meaning what we have, what we understand youth as, not only in the context of dictionary as an understanding, but also what it talks about in a socio-cultural context, in an economic context, and legal aspects. We will talk about identity of youth. What is the identity of youth that we have today? The concept and definition of youth. And there are some theories which are underlying and giving us a better understanding of youth, which would be Erik Erikson theory of psychosocial development, Marcia's theory of identity status, and some implication of identity and multiplicity of identity and indicators. So this will help us understand that youth is far more different from something that we can understand as adults. So let's begin the understanding as unit 1. So what do we understand youth as? Youth is a dynamic stage of life in the lifespan development that can become a very vibrant force in the society's progress. To state this and to understand this, we need to understand youth is the upcoming force of the nation. It is the future of the nation, and we need to know that these are some people that need to be trained, made learn better values, made understand, adjust, and modify so that we can have a better future in the society. Also, a substantial learning and acquisition happens at this time. As I mentioned, that this is one stage that can be made learn, is trained. We tend to modify, make them understand new things, and this is a stage which is actually filled with a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy. There's a boost, there's a lot of hope. These people are motivated to do well, motivated to pick up what they wish to do in their life, and also we can instill in them a lot of creativity and change in their minds. Also, youth, as stated on the slide, also is a time of search of meaning, for belonging and attainment. Youngsters want to explore oneself and one's qualities and capacity at this point of time. And when we talk about youth, we need to understand a very important point here, that it is a transitional stage. So this is a time which is not very fixed. That's the reason that we call it to be dynamic. It does not state to be very stable. Stable not in terms of what are they achieving, their energy and their hope. Stability is in terms of youth having a set of mind, their changes in physical body, mental body, psychological body. This is actually characterized by a term called transitional stage, which where you will find these people having a little dependency of children. We don't give them all the liberties, we don't give them all the rights, and at the same time we expect them to become like adults. So that's the reason that we call it a transitional stage, because of the fact that we are still seeing a lot of dependency in them. They are depending on their own guardians, on their own peer supports, on their own elder siblings, and at the same time we are expecting them to act as an adult. That's the reason transition is something that comes into play. That's why, as a category, youth is more fluid than being fixed. It is something that keeps moving on, keeps changing. There are no fixed age groups of this. At times, when we talk about different countries, there are going to be different stages and different youth stages and youth ages in different countries. So, yet age is easiest way to define this group, particularly in relationship to employment, in relationship to their education. Youth is also referred to persons of age leaving compulsory education and finding their first job. So the best way to identify them is ideally the age. Otherwise, in terms of characteristics, they show both characteristics, the characteristic of a child and a characteristic of adult, a mix of two, a very fluid like concept. This stage is, which is the youth. Also, when we talk about ages, different country has different ages. When we talk about US as a statistical age, which is being defined by them as 15 to 24, is the age of the upcoming youth. And as youth without any prejudices. This has been mentioned by the state. In India, if we talk about, youth will start from 18 and at times 16 also, 16 to 21, 22 is India. When we speak about other Asian country, which is Japan and China, they also talk about 16 to be the age of youth to start with. And juvenile laws are different to different countries. In India, we have something which is 16 to 18 years, which is juvenile laws applied. In US, it's 18, and in China, Japan, it's 16 plus. Now, let's understand another concept when we stated that this is a transitional age, an age where we will find some dependency on the the childhood, and we would want them to explore and express like an adult. So there's a thin line between the two. So to express this difference and the changes that we find in youth and adult, let's understand them properly in terms of differences, so that we'll be able to understand both the concept of adult and youth and not get confused. So let's first start with youth. Well, let's understand the first parameter that we speak of, which is sexual maturity for differences. Sexual maturity in youth has not been achieved yet. It's not reached at the moment, because we speak about children who are 15, 16, and 17. So sexual maturity is not reached. Adult has already owned and is at a sexual mature age. Then speaking of the level of emotional maturity. Emotional maturity is not only understanding of emotions, but also appraising them well, expressing them well, and then controlling and regulating. This is less in youth. The sense of control and the sense of regulation is quite less in the youth at the moment. And speaking about adults, adults are quite mature at this time. Supposedly, they are more mature in terms of the level of emotional maturity. What is the age group? It's from teens to early 20s, as we discussed, 16 plus for some countries, 18 plus for some, going on till 20, which is 25, and for us it's 20. And then when we speak of adult, adult is 25 and above. Responsibility, youth is less responsible, because we see a lot of dependency of the youth on their guardians, and we find adults to be more responsible. Speaking of dependency as an overall term, they are usually dependent on someone, which could be an adult in their life, a parent, a guardian, a sibling, a teacher, or a peer support, which could also be an adult. Like adult as in not of their own age group, could be someone who's higher in terms of their age group. Also, speaking to adults in terms of dependency, they do not have much dependency. They hold the responsibilities of their own actions. They're quite independent, and they at this time are also taking responsibility of another partner. Adults are, which is spouses, and in some cases, I think in Indian category, 60% of the cases are looking after their parents also at the same time. So they're quite dependable, and they do not rely on any other elder individual, and there is any reliability and any support. They take it from their age like spouse or friends, which is far more mature than when we are talking about youth for their decision making. Then life experiences. Teens have not taken at the moment much of life experiences. They have not witnessed much of life. They have not witnessed incidences that they've gone through, because they have not explored life yet. They've not gone out. They're still in a very formalized environment of education system, under their teachers, under their parents. And speaking of adults, adults have explored life at a greater level. They're working, they're taking care of their lives, they have life experiences at a personal level, professional level, emotional level. So they do see this, they do understand the term of the big bad world, where when we speak about youth, youth is still unaware of it. Now, speaking of emotional maturity is quite similar. They tend to be more emotional. They tend to have a little mood swings because of puberty hitting at this point of time. Puberty has just hit them 2 to 3 years back, so we will find a little lack of emotional regulation and turbulence in these people, and no stability. Whereas when we speak about adults, they tend to be less emotional. They tend to know how to hold on to things, because their life has taken different turns in terms of a family life, a professional life, of life with friends. So they're able to juggle emotions well, and more or less they feel lesser overwhelmed in comparison to the youth. So this is a very very strong patterns and parameters of differences, where we can understand what youth look like, and we can understand them, and what adult looks like. Now, let's move on to a different topic where we are going to understand what is youth in a different aspect. So, on a generalized level, we take youth as something which is a non-adult, also a generation which is to be developed and nurtured. Youth at the same time are called the demographic dividend. We are going to understand this in the upcoming slides. What are demographic dividends? They are non-adults. They are the change aspect because we call them the future of our country. They are in the transition phase. We know where values and morals are to be instilled. They are to be guided still. They still have some dependency. Youth is taken as a problem because there are high chances of, um, you know, risky behaviors which can be attempted by youth. So youth is also considered as a problem and used as risky behaviors. So as when we consider them as a problem, remember risky behaviors do lead to something which is developing a problem, which is getting into addictions of any kind of delinquent behaviors, vandalism, etc., which are risky behaviors and can cause problem to them, which is juvenile cases against them. Also impregnating before time, which is not having any sort of sexual maturity and sexual understanding and sex education, can also be a difficulty. That's why they are considered to take a lot of risky behaviors that can be a problem and consider them. A lot of times people consider them as a problem. Now, speaking and understanding of youth on a socio-cultural perspective, we understood as a general concept what was the definition and what was the idea about youth. Now let's understand how do we see youth in a socio-cultural perspective, which is in a social and a cultural perspective. We need to know here when we speak about socio-cultural perspective, we do not relate youth to age. We rather, the age is in terms of the biological reality, and we do not consider them in terms of the category of biological but more cultural aspects. So here we will consider and understand youth in terms of their experiences, their growing life, which is influenced by the society's forces and cultural norms where they inhabit at, where they stay. So thus youth is a socially and culturally constructed concept. It is because we need to know when we speak about India itself, in a lot of terms and a lot of understanding of a lot of behaviors and personality which is being developed is also culturally constructed, which is there are some cultures which are very dominant, cultures which are very strong, and they tend to develop an individual on the basis of the cultural understanding, like how to behave, how to talk, what to wear, how to acknowledge people, speak to them, put up relationship, are at times coming from the cultural norms. So as youth, when are developing, are seeing the values of the society, are seeing the values and the norms of the culture. Thus, this concept is also culturally constructed. It is necessary to make a note that the fact that inherent assumptions in youth psychology are largely borrowed from developmental psychology about universal stages of development that are same across culture. So we need to know that any the development of youth psychology in while they are developing tends to be same across culture. So whatever stages that we cross in development when we speak about youth remains universally same across different cultures, and I could say across the globe. The theories remain universal when we speak about them. However, the phase of development, youth is not devoid of the influence of culture. As I said, it is culturally constructed. We cannot remove the development, the understanding of youth when we put them in a culture. Culture usually shapes them, modifies them, and brings up their personality. So this is youth in a socio-cultural perspective where we simply understand that it is socially constructed. Now, moving on to understand youth is a dynamic notion. It keeps evolving with time and space in cultural context also. Once the youth is defined, it always will be regarded in relationship to the culture. So there's a theory that we are now going to understand. This theory was given by Yuri Bronfenbrenner. This is an ecological perspective theory and a contextual development theory. When we speak about contextual and ecological development, they are trying to tell us that how is youth developing when the context, when they are interacting with different contexts being at the center. So Let's go ahead with an understanding what are the different contexts. Context are situations where the youth interacts with, and how this context changes their personality, their growth, and their livability once they interact with these systems. So these systems are microsystems, mesosystem, exosystem, and macrosystem. And chronosystem. Microsystem is the setting in which the individual lives, includes the person's peers, school. So microsystem is one of the most closest system where we interact daily. The school is something the child will interact daily. It's going to be something when we speak about peer groups also, teachers also, families also, that we interact daily. So this is the context when we speak about. So microsystem would be the context which is more closest to the child, has direct interaction and a direct influence. Speaking of the other, when we talk about, then we come to something which is mesosystem. Mesosystem is just a connection, and I'll show you the picture in the image also that we can see the family, the peers, the neighbors, the family, the teachers of the microsystem. Then the connection, the arrow between the child, family, and the blue area is something which is the mesosystem. Mesosystem is the connection between the exo and the child. Exosystem here connects, takes in relationship to the social settings. Social settings could be your neighbors. It could also be your mother's work environment, the people in the mother's or the father's work environment. So a social system that we are not interacting directly does not have an immediate contact, but can have an impact on our behavior. Then we come to something which is the macro system. Macro is the larger culture that we are a part of. This larger culture could be community group, this could be a religious group, or cultural norms of people that they're a part of. So this could be the kind of religion people are associating to, the kind of community that they're associated to, the kind of way of living that they are using or adapting to. So that's the macro system. Again, something which is not available to all. Not everyone will practice a religion or be a part of community or has a religious thought. Then we come to the last, which is called the chronosystem. Chronosystem actually is a system which is not a part of everybody. This is a pattern of environmental events over time and transition over life course. So these are those exceptional system category which is not present with all, like loss of a father, loss of a child. Like COVID was something which might have got a lot of chronosystems in our environment, where people have lost their families, people have lost their siblings, there are separations in the family that are happening, a complete economic loss which has probably divided child from the school. So school was initially the microsystem, now the child is devoid of that. So chronosystem is one of those environmental events which could change the entire life course. Not present with everybody, something that we all do not experience. So youth is actually seen as a social process according to the socio-cultural context and not as a biological process. This completes the understanding of youth in a socio-cultural context. Let's understand youth in terms of economic perspective. As I spoke about that in the beginning, that youth is also understood as a demographic dividend. Let's understand what is a demographic dividend. It is the benefit, the benefit, and the development that takes place due to the shift in the age of the population. Working population is quite high in the country. So remember, the benefit, you can also understand benefit is the benefit and the development that take place as as there's a shift of the youth age population. So today they are trying to tell us demographic dividend is going to be high if the working population is going to be high. So the fact that the youth has started earning very early today. Now, I still remember, at our times, children started working at the age of 25, 26, and that was completely fine. 25 was found to be a perfect age of working. Today, children have started working at the age of 22, 21. Some of them have even were started doing their own startups at 19 plus. So do you realize the youth, as soon as they enter and start being the youth, have developed the concept and understanding of the working population. So if the working population is more, the benefit is more, the development and that happens in the shift stage, transitional stage is more. So demographic dividend is going to be higher. Demographic dividend is working population in comparison to the population. So once the working population keeps increasing in comparison to the youth population that we have, there's going to be a higher demographic. Also, the NYP, the National Youth Policy of 2021, articulated a 10-year vision for the youth. development, they have given some goals, which are 17 goals, which is called the Sustainable Development Goals, which they assume the youth to achieve by 2030. So this was labeled in 2021. There are 17, the SDGs are Sustainable Development Goals. These goals are not only for the environment and the country, but also for the youth to unlock their potential, to understand where is the area that they can develop. So we look into something which is gender inequality, quality education, the SDGs. The SDGs also talks about fitness and sports, social justice, etc. Each area is prioritized in a way that we are able to do social inclusion. We are able to get the youth together, benefit them as much as possible through this youth policy, and the government suggests by 2030 there would be a number of youth potentially moving towards successful achievements of all the 17 sustainable development goals. So implementation of these schemes are important, and there is another which is called the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. This is also a flagship scheme by the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, which is MSDE, implemented by the National Skill Development Corporation. The objective of this skill and this policy is a certification scheme is to enable the large amount of Indian youth to take up the relevant industry and to explore, develop their skill, and move towards building their own startups, building their own entrepreneurs, so that they can have a better livelihood. So the fact that we are speaking about better employability of this generation and age, which is called the youth, the more that we provide them opportunities to grow and put out their stimulated ideas towards the world, the more individuals who are able to become entrepreneur will be able to provide more number of employments. So more number of employments will have more higher demographic dividend, because there's going to be a larger population now which would be working. So this is what is the idea behind the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. This is the way that we understand what is happening to youth in consideration of the economic perspective that we have. Now let's understand youth in some of the legal perspective. When we speak about legal perspective, juvenile laws are something which are actually applicable to youth, because this is one of the most riskiest age of life, and treating youth and making them understand these laws is extremely important. Juvenile is coming and derived from a Latin word which is called juvenis, which means that these individuals are still under category and still under understanding of the government, and there are some separate laws which are applicable to them which are not applicable to the adults. Adults are applicable and under law can be subjected to a lot of crimes which these juveniles would not be subjected. Juveniles are given juvenile, which means younger person who can still retaining the characteristic of a child and behaviors of the child and dependency of the child. Keeping that mindset and understanding of youth, juvenile laws are applied to them, so that they are not subjected to something which is unfair conviction. They are not given some sort of punishment which will shun down their potential, and they will disturb the individual at a greater level. So when we talk about the term delinquency, which connotes the failure to observe the norms of the society, these are some delinquent behavior that children get into, which is small little robberies, doing things which are wrong, pickpocketing on streets, taking drugs and getting involved into rash driving, accidents, killing people for money. So these are some activities where these children are given and subjected to different kind of punishment in comparison to adults, because there is a lesser emotional maturity, there's a lesser understanding, there is a lesser higher amount of dependency of this group. Also, justice means that it is concerning fairness, justice, and equitableness. Equitableness means as per age and circumstances what is right for this category, what kind of punishment and righteous thing is correct for them. It is a principle also. When we talk about equitableness, we need to know it's the principle of moral rightness in the pursuit of fair treatment against the unfair behavior. Juvenile justice system is a system which is coming within the area of criminal law administration. So if you talk about juvenile system of law, it is not something which is different. It will not be something which will not be giving punishment to the youth, there would be, but in consideration, it is adopted as per their age, as per their understanding, as per their maturity. Also, this juvenile justice bill was revamped and passed in the Lok Sabha in 7th May 2015 because of a huge case which happened in India. And the new bill will allow minors in the age group of 16 to 18 to be tried as adults if committed a very heinous crime. So this is in consideration to the crime which happened, which was Nirbhaya Hatyakand. It was that case which revamped the entire bill, juvenile justice bill in 2015, which stated now that 16 to 18 years of children also, the youth that we consider, will be tried on court if the crime is really grave and really severe. The crime will be examined by the Juvenile Justice Board if they are actually trying the individual from 16 to 18, and the crime will be given as per certain the way the crime is being done as a child or as an adult. So these are some new changes which talks about how does we define adult, how do we define youth as under the legal perspective. Now let's start in understanding the concept of identity and the concept of what do we understand as the youth identity. It is a very interesting concept when we speak of identity, because the identity is not only important to youth, I feel. It's important to everybody around us. It's important to us today. The identity that hold us today not only give us the name, but also give us the identification in society, a name in the society. So it's important to everybody. So what does identity encompasses? Identity encompasses memories, experiences, relationship, values that creates one sense of self. It's an amalgamation of steady sense of the world over time, over experiences, over new facets are developed and are incorporated within one's identity. Also, identity is are defined as a set of sense of self defined in two perspectives. A set of self which is physical, it is psychological also. It will involve all your thinking, reasoning, problem solving, decision making concepts, interpersonal characteristics, that is not only you but others also, and this is not only shared by any other person. And B, now we categorize them in the kind of range of affiliation, the ethnicity, the kind of roles, the kind of groups, the kind of societal identification they're holding when they are identifying themselves towards a group. It could be a cultural group, it could be a community group, it could be an educational group, it could be a cultural group also when we speak about it. So identity involves a sense of continuity. Why do we need an identity? Why does an adult need an identity today? Adults needs an identity because they've been a working class for a passage of 5 to 10 years. Why would a youth need an identity? Youth will need an identity because there's a sense of uncertainty within them, because they are less mature. There's a high sense of overwhelming emotions that they experience. They are still dependent on their peers, or they're still dependent on their adults. So they do need a sense of continuity, a feeling of being a same person, what they were today, yesterday, and what they will be in the future coming times. Not only in the physical terms, but also in the psychological, social, and cultural terms. Speaking of this, we begin with the theories of identity. These are one of the most important theories that will tell us that what did theories speak about identities when they talked about youth. One of the most fulfilling and important theories that we have is Erik Erikson's psychosocial development. Erikson was a psychologist who got away from Sigmund Freud, and he stated that our development, which was personality development, took place in relationship to something which is themselves and in interaction with the culture and society. So here we do not talk about only the biological drive as Sigmund Freud, but also speak about how is personality developed in relationship to the society, in relationship to the social cultural norms. So Erik Erikson's central thesis, which is the central concept that he gave rise to, was something which was the identity crisis. The fundamental organizing principle that he speak of is the identity development. He said that what was identity? A sense of sameness is identity, which is you continuing to identify yourself as who you are today, as like for example, your real self would be something which is today as being confident, as being hardworking, as being what you look at yourself as, who you are and what you want to do, to be same today, to be same tomorrow, and it's coming in relationship to from your experiences which was yesterday. Then we speak about uniqueness. Uniqueness is something. Identities are unique. Why? Because they're different from people to people. You do not hold the similar identities as other people because of the fact that we are distinct people. We do not even hold the similar, skin tone, facial features. So how do we hold a psychological characteristic which remain the same? So we need to know a frame to differentiate between self and interaction with others, which is uniqueness is something which is you interacting with a second person, third person holding an idea which is different. Now the second and the third person interacting might hold a different idea about themselves, and the third person might hold a different idea about themselves. So identities can never be the same. They'll always be different because that's how we hold each other as unique. Unique in terms of different, unique in terms of a sense of clarity which defines who you are and what you are, which is always going to be different from the other. Then the third part that we talk about is the psychosocial development. This development is not only physical but also mental and psychological. So these are the three categories that Erik Erikson identified and stated identity to be a part. And now let's understand with the major central thesis that Erik Erikson started with. This central thesis and this central part that he spoke about was identity versus role confusion. So speaking of identity versus role confusion, there is something during this stage when we speak about identity. Youth is one of those times that is utterly confused, and at the same time, if someone has a great sense of sameness, uniqueness, and affiliation, have a identity which is easily formed. So let's understand that when we speak about identity versus role confusion, Erik Erikson stated that this is one of those times of youth where the adolescents are in a search of sense of self, a personal identity. They are, there's a huge amount of exploration of personal values, beliefs, and goals. So, speaking of this, they stated that self is something which is not alone. A sense of self and a personal identity would be something coming from the personal values, will be coming from belief system, will be coming from the interaction, will be coming from the kind of idea that you hold about you, which is the personal identity. So children who are able to look towards their future relationship, family, housing with a lot of clarity, they have a sense of fit, that where do they belong to the society, where do they fit to the society, what are they going to do. They have an established sense of self, and they've experimented, have explored the different roles, activities, behaviors, and opportunities, will have a strong sense of self. At the same time, Erik Erikson stated that this is a time where forming of strong identity and developing a sense of direction of life is extremely important. It is. The age of 15, 16, 17 is a time which causes a lot of stress and storm to the adolescent, because they are moving towards the age of youth, which is going to be very uncertain, and they need to be having a very good amount of understanding of who they are and what they want to do, not only in a relation of personal idea, but also the value systems, also the goals, also the establishment they want to be a part of, etc. So the ones who are able to clearly see and precisely understand this are able to develop that sense of identity formation. At the same time, let's take an example. If somebody fails, and there is failure in this stage, as we stated. So speaking of success and failure, let's say if somebody has failed or succeeded, there's a virtue which is developing, which is fidelity. Fidelity is success in terms of the identity formation that we have. So if you're uncomfortable in your bodies, uncomfortable with people, the social environment, uncomfortable with your achievement, you do not have a proper understanding of your personal values, fidelity will not be achieved. Fidelity involves the commitment with oneself on the basis of accepting others, and also the ideology and differences with others. So when we speak about ideologies, remember it's going to be being able to establish yourself as an individual. If there is a lack of precision, lack of clarity, what you want to do today, how will you do today, what is going to come next, no exploration, no experiences, no opportunities explored before, remember it's going to cause failure. And failure is not achieving the sense of identity within the society, which would lead to role confusion. Role confusion involves the individuals being not sure of what they want to do. Where do they stand in the environment? Where do they stand in the world? This role confusion actually causes the youth to be at the risk of risky behaviors, at the risk of being a problem to the society. They get into addiction, they get into delinquent behavior, crimes. They're not able to find an idea of what they will do, future in their, what kind of future they will hold. There's a high sense of rebellion, there's a high sense of difficulty. Also, there's a high sense of confusion that not only confuses their personal self, but also confuses all the parameters around, which is social, emotional. All of this lacks the understanding of what they want to do. And when you do not have a career clarity, relationship clarity, we lack that understanding of building and being the future of the world. So there would be a lack of employability. Lack of employability would build in a lot of stress. That stress can lead to experimental behavior, impregnating, promiscuous sexual activities in the youth that could be very detrimental to their development in the future. So this was the success and failure at this stage. Erik Erikson has beautifully stated, as we just discussed, that identity is such an important category to be developed by youth. Now let's come to Marcia's theory of identity statuses. It was a very clear theory, and very relatable theory also at the same time. Marcia in 1966 gave a theory. She extended the theory of Erik Erikson, and extending this theory, she's described that identity formation during adolescence as involving two things. So according to her, the identity formation has two parts, which is exploration and commitment with respect to ideologies, like ideologies, occupation. Occupation could be religious, political, career, gender, relationship, etc. Identity development begins when individuals identify with their role models who provide them options to explore and options to explore what they want to become. So it's their role models that they look up to, which give them the idea of what they want to be, how they can be, and they explore a little, they feel, they fail, they pick up something else, they succeed, they stay with their role models. So as identity development progresses, adolescents are expected to make choices, commit to options, and not only options which are only socio-economical context, but also in the social context, but also in the personal context. That that looks and supports them of being, and more the exploration as we understood, better is going to be their identity. In some cases, options are not provided and are limited. The individuals will fail to commit and will commit to opportunities which are not correct. So as we hold role models, we'll be able to explore. Once we are able to confine to our role models in a social, economical, or emotional context, we are able to find out more options. The more options that you are, you're able to, you're not able to commit to anyone, and you tend to fail. Once you have a role model and you explore, you'll be able to find few options. Few options will make you have a target area. You will be able to commit to the target area. Once you commit to the target area, you're doing both. You're exploring and committing. The ones who are not able to explore, have no role models, will not be able to explore, will not be able to commit. So this is how commitment and exploration can take a toss in the individual. Once you don't explore much, you tend to commit to wrong things, lead to risky behaviors, accidental behaviors, and behaviors which could be a problem. Now, let's understand the stages of Marcia. The first one that we look to is identity diffusion. This is a status that is characterized by those who have neither explored the options nor made a commitment to an identity. So these are ones who have no exploration and no commitment. We just understood. So they've not made a role model. They have very little awareness of identity exploration. They have no role models. They've not explored anything. They've not had the opportunities also to explore. So once you do not explore, what are you not able to do? You're not able to commit to anything because you do not have any target goals in front of you. So those who persist this kind of identity may drift aimlessly with little connection to those around them and have a little sense of purpose, which is very true. Lesser opportunities, lesser commitment will lead to more crisis in identity. More the crisis, the more you get scattered and the more you don't know what to do in life. You don't have any goals in life. So characteristics associated with prolonged diffusion includes low self-esteem, easily influenced by peers, have a lack of meaningful friendship. They tend to get swayed away. They are very self-indulgent, self-absorbed, not so good behaviors, experimental behaviors that could be very self-absorbing and self-indulging and harmful, which is like addiction. Now moving to the next, which is identity flow foreclosure. Here they have the commitment to an identity without being explored the options. So these are people who are at times, I'll just give an example to the youth, at times we pick up subjects without any exploration and understanding. We have picked up because our friend is going to science, so we pick up science too. So what do you have? You've made a commitment, but without doing any research of the subjects, without doing any research of the careers that you have in future, what you want to become, but you've committed to it. So often young adolescents will enter a phase which is called the foreclosure stage, which is commitment is predetermined by socio-cultural and religious affiliation, but there is no exploration. So this commitment is often a response to anxiety about uncertainty of change during adolescent, a lot of pressure forming from parents, social groups, cultural expectation. It is expected that the most adolescents will progress beyond the foreclosure phase as they think independently and will multiply options. However, sometimes foreclosure will persist into late adolescent and even adulthood, which means at times, what the text is trying to say, foreclosure is able to gain clarity with the passage of time because we are committed. There's a higher commitment, clarity will come. But at times, the foreclosure goes till the age of adult, and there's a high sense of confusion. Till the adulthood, middle adulthood, people are still confused. What are they doing in their life without any exploration, without any sort of, any sort of researches that they have done, and it might persist till the later, the later adulthood, early adulthood, and middle adulthood. So this is foreclosure as we speak of. Now moving to the next is identity moratorium. This is a status that describes who have an actively exploring identities is an attempt to establish an identity but yet not have made any commitment. So these are ones who've explored way too much. They've been so anxious and so emotionally tense that they've experimented so much, so many roles, explored so much that they're now unsure what to commit to. This is like career development only if you see it. Like that's one of the biggest and one of the most apt example here for youth. They've been trying to go to every subject, learn every subject, go to every subject class that they now don't know what to pick up. They have no subject to commit to. They don't understand what are their identities and their achievement aligned to. So during the moratorium stage, it is normal for adolescents to be religious and uncooperative. They avoid dealing with problems because they're already very anxious by dealing with so many explored options. They also experience low self-esteem, very anxious, they're very uncertain about their own decisions, they're a little confused, and they avoid dealing with problems because they feel they already have so much on their platter to explore, yet they're not able to commit to things. Now, coming to the last, which is identity achievement, one of the best kind of identities that we expect the youth to achieve, which is called as the identity achievement. Here they're able to explore a lot and even able to commit to one. Identity achievement is a long process, not often realized by the end of adolescent. Here, individuals, that do reach the identity achievement, they have a sense of fulfillment, self acceptance, self definition, and commitment to their identities. By Marcia statuses helps us understand that we, if explore too much, might not be able to commit. And there are times when we explore little might lead to confusion. And if you don't do anything, you will not have an identity. So Marcia's theory was at the same time criticized a lot. Why? Because they felt that these statuses may not be global. What you see in these statuses might be achieved only and seen in one culture, not in the other culture. At the same time, an individual maybe have multiple identities. So how have they reached to those multiple identities? She does not speak of multiple identities in terms of culture, in terms of different economic levels. Also, at the same time, one could be in foreclosure status for their religious identity, but moratorium for their career. So again, when we speak of identities, we need to speak about holistic identity, which could be religious, culture, educational, even gender and such. So Marcia did not take all the identities into consideration. At the same time, Marcia did not speak about multiple identities, and we are doubting if her statuses of Marcia is global or not. But they were a beautiful way to tell us that how identity confusion can take place and achievement can take place according to statuses, as it is. You can see the example also, identity achievement, you have commitment and exploration both present. Foreclosure, you have questioning, adoption of parental societal values, so you do have no exploration, you tend to commit. Then there is a moratorium, the commitment is absent, too much of exploration, and the diffusion as you have none. Explored a lot, still confused, no commitment. So this completes with Marcia's theory, and now we move to something which is indicators of identities. When we speak about indicators, we talk about how identity is indicated in the society. So social identity is one of the most important factor. We can never miss social identity because culture and society is so embedded in all of us. We are all living a life, I feel, which is culturally constructed. So social identity is a self concept which is affiliated by the society, social group, and social categorization. And the first in terms here is, as an indicator, is caste. Modern Indian system is based on an artificial and super imposition of four folds of caste system, and which is also called in the society, social grouping as jatis, the varnas, where Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudras. These were categorized on the basis of the kind of work these members were doing. So when the Varna Brahmin, when they were only preaching and teaching, they were considered to be the highest one, and then the Kshatriyas, the warriors, then came the Vaishyas with the workers, and the Shudras were the ones which was working for the above. So these were jatis which were determined at the time of birth only, and as soon as you were born, you were given one, and you were given work also according to these jatis and these varnas. So this was the first categorization, and also we can take as an indicator of identity that we get in the beginning itself. Then we come to class. Society has always been stratified, and stratification takes place in the order of subgroup or class. The class in which the different kind of people are placed according to their occupation, their economy, their caste and wealth. So class is something which is an amalgamation of status that you are given on the basis of the economy, the caste that you have, the occupation, and the wealth that you collect. So this class system is a global phenomena in which people of the same order are placed in a particular group, which makes it different and specify relationship with the other groups. Also, this system was first believed to this was obviously class was taken as one of the first category for differentiation because economic strength, but then sociologists claim that there are other factors also to divide people into groups. So in the initial times, we only had class because of the economic level, but later sociologists said we have other ways of differentiating people also, not only economic levels. So after caste and class, we have something. These are the classes that we have, which is on the basis of economic level, which is the upper class, the upper middle class, the lower middle class, the working class, and then the lower class. So in the initial times, people found this is the only way to bifurcate people in the world, in the society. But later we had the caste system also that came up. Then we talk about gender, one of the most important factors that we cannot, something that we can avoid. Gender and sex are two different things. Gender is something which is a social construct. It is not something that you get from the birth primarily. Sex is something that you're achieving from birth. So as soon as you born your body genitals tell that are you a male or a female. But gender identity is not like that. It is something which describes a person's self-perceived gender, which could be considered as a male or female. So this is something as you consider yourself as male and female in the socio-cultural construct. In the recent year, this gender as a concept has been freed a little. We have, as we talk about the LGBTQ, we have so much coming on the platter. So gender has been freed, and there are many other comfortable ways that we can consider people. Remember, gender identity corresponds to their biological sex, which may be referred as cisgender. And transgender are people who have a gender identity that does not conform to the sex that they have at birth. So these are called transgender. Transgender usually does not conform. So the gender that you hold is not conforming with the sex that you have. Whereas when we talk about the cisgender, which is the gender that you hold is conforming to the sex that you have. So a male understanding himself as a male. Transgenders are not the same. They have a gender, not gender and sex not being in sync. Then we have sexual orientation, which is also the direction of emotional and erotic attraction towards the opposite sex. Because of this gender sexual orientation, we have been so many classes today that we considered. Initially, we only, in the initial time, we only had something which was in a heterosexual relationship and a homosexual relationship. Today, this homosexuality has been expanded to a greater level because sexual orientation is expanding. We do not have sexual orientation towards only opposite, but also today same sex or both the sexes. Now, Religion is another usual way that we categorize the people of the society in identity. It's one of the today I feel gender, religion, and caste is such a big factor today, and religion also, that it represents the attempts to answer so many questions. Religion is a factor which is being used so many ways, in so many ways, so many categories to for both appreciation and deprivation of people. So while it isn't always able to achieve the goal, it often succeeds at providing followers and structure. So what is religion? Religion can, I feel, it's such a multifold concept, that it's such a complex concept, that it is a code of ethics, it's a way of living at times, it's a sense of purpose, it is a sense of support and faith for people. So a promise of an afterlife, a core tenet of most of the organized religion, that if you abide to this is guaranteed afterlife. So it could be a lot for people. So it's a multifold complex concept that we have, which is both not only dealing with psychological thought, but also with something which we call as a psychological, supporting the psychological functioning also. So this is religion. And let's just understand sex and gender in terms of difference, because this is something which is always confused by people. Sex is biologically derived and defined, and which is physiologically male and female, which is by the body genitals. Genders are the social cultural differences between male and female. How does a male behave, act, talk, and how does a female behave, talk, as per culture? Sexes are two, which is male and female. Genders are masculine and feminine, and sexes remain the same over time across the culture. Genders are differentiating as per the expectation, as per the sexual orientations that we're having. Also, sex is created by reproduction needs and a biological feature. Gender distinctions are actually created by the society. If the society allows a gender, it's going to be something which, becomes a part of it. When we talk about LGBTQ, Q is something which we talk in terms of cure. And when we talk about so many other genders that have come, transgenders are also getting so many jobs today. So once we are acknowledging them and as a social structure, getting them a part of social structure, the more the society acknowledges a gender, the more uplifted and part of the society it becomes. So that's what we talk about as difference between gender and sex. That completes with the indicators. And one of the last indicators that we speak about is ethnicity, which refers to the social group category that is defined on the basis of shared historical, national, political, and cultural heritage of people. Ethnicity refers to the shared ancestry, language, culture, rituals that we are a part of, happens to be common to a group of people. I don't want to name any sort of an ethnicity, but you can talk about this when we talk about this category and indicator of identity. This would be people together holding a political thought, social, national, and a cultural heritage together. So this does shape your identity at a political level, social level, and a traditional level, because people together hold it. So probably all of them together might provide them a code of social political thought, an ancestral heritage, which is a cultural heritage of that group. And that's what also categorizes identity. At time, a lot of people define themselves on the basis of these indicators, their caste, their class. People talk about themselves being probably a Brahmin, coming from an upper class family of this religion, and being a boy and a girl. So remember, we do use these indicators to introduce ourselves even today. So these are strong indicators of identity that completes with indicators of identity, and we move to something which speaks of multiplicity of identity. Multiplicity is such a complex topic that we have, and let's understand it in a composition of so many other things. When we speak about multiplicity, let's understand identity on the basis of multiplicity of identity on a social, psychosocial, post-structural, and socio-cultural. The image is such a beautiful way of telling that yes, it does hold a multiple level of understanding of identity. So at a psychosocial level, what will be identity of? It is identity obviously is developed rather than constructed according to psychosocial. We are developing it by interaction with people. Eric Erickson stated, identity is developed once you interact with the society, with the culture, with the society's norm. So it is something which is developed through interaction, and it's not something just that is suddenly found. Also, at the same time, existence of a stable and a core identity happens. At times, if identity does not take place, it could lead to identity confusion. Identity has both quantity and quality approaches. That is, identity is both qualitative in nature and quantitative. Also, there's a distinction between social, personal, and ego identity according to psychosocial. Now, speaking of post-structural, what will identity be? So, how do we define post-structural means? What is the definition and the concept all about of identity? Identity's concept is multiple. It's shifting. It is shifting every day. We do see identities are shifting every day, generation to generation. What youth was 10 years back is not youth today. So it's a fluid-like thing. It is shifting. Also, possibilities of self-transformation is there, which is in post-structure. It is relational. Identities are relational, are very flexible and reflexive also. Why we see role model people change, think. That's why it's shifting, transforming. Now let's come to the last, and then we see how do these three factors interact with one another. The last is how identity is socio-cultural. It is something which is relational, mediated, and situated. There is high emphasis on socio-historical and cultural context, which is said that the society, the religion, society, and the culture shapes identity. So if an individual is a part of a culture, that culture will make them learn how to develop your personality. Like our culture has a personality to be probably, let's take an example, at an area to tell men to be doing both the household, chores and working also. They tell that women needs to be involved in all sort of decision making. So if such a culture is being given, remember identity that would be formed would be as per that culture. Like in some culture, aggression is negated. It's frowned upon. It's not a good trait. Probably let's come to Asian culture of India. Aggression probably at some areas of work into some genders taken as a very positive. So this is how identity is developed socio-culturally. Now let's get post-structural, socio-cultural, and psychosocial together. So once we get all of them together, what does it look like? So individual is social, right? Individual and society together gives us identity as a process which is subject to change, which is also both influenced by socio-cultural context, and at the same time it is socially constructed rather than developed. So if we understand it's an amalgamation of two according to the psychosocial thing, identity is always a process. That means it's developing with the passage of time, usually impacted by culture, predominantly mostly qualitative. They say now the connection between all three says that it's not something which is quantitative but mostly qualitative. So speaking of this, we need to know that identity is simultaneously cohesive and multiple. So we needed to know it's all jointly together. All the kinds of identity are going to work together and there are multiple in nature. But to sum this up, we need to say that identity is a paradoxical experience. It could go up sometime, go down. It's an amalgamation of so many other things. And the working can be not only one but multiple. So speaking of identity, what do we understand in this? When we speak about identities, always remember identities are always multiple. It's not only psychological but also social and cultural. Yes, also at times where they are culturally rather constructed at some areas. So it is not something which can be applied at a global level. When we speak about cultural phenomena, it could only be at some areas, and at some areas it could be developed. So when we talk about technologically developed countries, we can say that identities in a psychosocial environment is being developed because it's been acquired. We are learning. We have a better education system. And at the time where cultural ethnicities and where the rituals, the language, the ancestral heritage is high, is peakingly strong, it could be considered to be dependent on cultural construction. It's both qualitative and quantitative, but we sum it up to be quality more. This was speaking about gender and identity, and holistically today about identity. Identity is paradoxical, it is multiple, and it keeps changing as a fluid. It will not be static, not today, not later. It can go up, it can go down, it could, but once formed, it could give a role formation, not confusion. So we should restrict in terms of Marcia's theory and Erik Erikson theory. The end product is identity development and identity formation and achievement, which is important for the youth before they enter into something which is the last group of adult. So speaking about identity, identity formation is important in India from the age group of 18 to 21, and in outside countries the youth is different. The youth is considered to be 18. In some areas the youth is considered to be 16, but for us it's 16 to 20 as an Indian citizen. Thank you so much.